Hello aspirants, welcome to LaEx Learnings. So today we will discuss about cess and surcharges. Recently, 16th Finance Commission Chairman Arvind Panagare had said that the issue of cess and surcharges are very much complicated with respect to divisible pool of taxes. So in this context, we will discuss what is cess and surcharges with respect to UPSC examination. So let us begin. Cess and surcharge, both are taxes, but what are the major difference between them, and what is the distinguish between the normal tax and cess, and the distinguish between the normal tax and the surcharge? We will look those aspects briefly. So cess is a tax levied on goods and services. But what is the difference? There are also normal taxes which are levied on goods and services, right? But cess is imposed to collect funds for specific purposes. Normal tax are collected for any purposes, but cess is imposed and collected for specific purposes. For example, health cess, right? For example, education cess. These cesses are collected to spend in these sectors only. And the cess can be tax on tax. What mean tax on tax? Tax on tax is nothing but the tax imposed on the base of the tax. For example, if there is 100 rupees for any goods and services, okay, 100 rupees, right? So there is a 30% tax on that, this 100 rupees, right? The cess is 3%. So this 3% cess is not imposed on 100 rupees, but imposed on 30%. So 3% of the 30%, how much is 0.9%, right? So overall, how much it's become? 130.09, right? 30% tax, 3% of 30% equal to 0.9%, right? So we will include 130.09%. But the cess can also be imposed on goods and services amount, on all amount. For example, if the goods and services costs 100 rupee and tax is 30%, we are imposing 3% tax on 100 rupees, right? We are not imposing 3% tax on this particular tax, but you are imposing 3% tax on this whole amount. So how much it becomes? It's become 133, right? So 130.09 rupees we have to pay. But here consumer has to pay 133 rupees. Difference is that we are imposing 3% tax on the whole amount. Here we imposing 3% cess are imposing on 30% of the tax base. So here we can calculate cess is a tax on tax. Here it's a cess is a tax on the whole product. This is the major difference between the normal tax and the cess. But what is surcharge? Surcharge is also tax levied. Surcharge is also tax levied on high wealthy individuals. To gather more revenue for the central government to spend on any general purposes. What is general purposes? Like infrastructure, right? Or any like funding to any projects, developmental projects. So such are general purposes. For such general purposes, we collect surcharges in addition to normal taxes. But what is the difference between normal taxes? Normal taxes are also collected to general purposes. But what is the difference between normal tax and surcharge? Surcharge is purely a tax on tax. Tax on tax means Here the tax imposed on the tax base. If there is a person who earns profit of 100 rupee, right? Government imposes 30% income tax. 30% income tax, right? So here 30% income tax imposed. So based on this 30%, we impose 5%, right? So because of this, we call surcharge purely a tax on tax. So here we can't impose 5% on 100 rupees. 100 rupees, right? So you impose 5% surcharge on the tax amount. Because of this, we call surcharge a purely a tax on tax. So surcharge covered under Article 271. 271 talks about the surcharge. Here, cess is mentioned in Article 270. Article 270 says that cess is not covered under the divisible pool of taxes. What is divisible pool of taxes? We already discussed what is divisible pool of taxes and divisible pool of taxes in the video Finance Commission in the earlier. So whoever not watched that video yet, so please go back and watch that video and come back to this video. You will get some conceptual clarity with regard to divisible pool of taxes and non-divisible pool of taxes. So here the surcharge is also covered under Income Tax Act. These two statutes are talk about surcharges in the Indian context. Here surcharge is collected for general purposes. This is the major difference between the normal tax and the surcharges. But what is the difference between cess and surcharge? What is the major difference between these two aspects? Because these are the two major taxes which give the central government advantage to gather more funds for the fiscal consolidation. These are the funds, both are collected and included in Consolidated Fund of India. Both are also not shared with the states. Shared with the states. That's why majority of the southern states and other states also are demanding to inclusion of these taxes in the divisible pool of taxes. But central government arguing that there is already been increased share of states in divisible pool of taxes. So let us have these two sources of the funds with us to develop some of the infrastructure in the country, to give loans to the states and also give grant in needs to the states. But what are the major difference between cess and surcharge? Cess is majorly specific. For example, it is imposed on specific purposes. For example, to health, education. For example, GST compensation cess was imposed, right? It can be imposed on goods and services or the income also, income of any individuals. Here it is for general purposes, but it majorly includes the income of individuals, income or corporate tax, majorly targets the high healthy individuals. So to extract more funds from them for equitable distribution. Says majorly uniform across country. Means cess is uniform for all the people. If even I consume some goods and services, I have to pay same amount of cess. In even higher income individuals who consumes the same amount of goods and services, they have to pay the same amount of taxes. For example, there is a good GST compensation tax levied on sin goods like cigarette, tobacco, right? So if I consume cigarette or tobacco, I have to pay same amount of cess. If any individual, high income individual, if he consumes a cigarette or any tobacco products, he has to same amount of taxes, right? But here it's not uniform across the country. Here, the cess is majorly uniform rate. Uniform rate. What is uniform rate? For example, if the cess is imposed on any goods and services, that is the rate 3% or 4%. This rate is uniform across the country for applicable for all individuals. But surcharges varies. For example, if I earns 100 rupees, so I have to pay surcharge 5%. 5%. If any another individual, he earns 200 rupees, he has to pay surcharge 10%. Means the rate of surcharges also vary from individuals to individuals based on the income cap. These are the major differences with respect to cess and surcharges. But what are the concerns with respect to cess and surcharges? There are many issues with respect to cess and surcharges. There are issues with respect to cess and surcharges. That's why many states are demanding a reform in the structure system of cess and surcharges. What are the issues? There is a lack of transparency. And there is no mechanism to ensure transparency, whether it is the fund collected through cess and surcharges are being used effectively. There is one issue. And surcharges, especially surcharge, it is creating burden on individuals. Because of that burden, majorly high-healthy individuals try to avoid the taxes, and also there will be a tax avoidance and tax evasion because of these surcharges. And there is the issue of not shared between the states. Not shared with the states. Many states want a reform with respect to cess and surcharges. But however, for the financial consolidation, to have a infrastructure development and equitable distribution of resources, we want to have a mechanism of tax collection, and cess and surcharges provide such opportunity. But we have to take some measures, right? There should be a rationalization of cess and surcharges. How rationalization can be done? To minimal collection, and also effective utilization. How these can be done? Minimal collection and effective utilization. These comes from for ensuring transparency and accountability in the cess and surcharge system. By enhancing transparency and accountability in this particular system, we can also enhance the spirit of fiscal federalism in the country. So, in order to enhance the fiscal federalism and also effective cooperative federalism with respect to growth and development, we have to ensure that there are some mechanisms to take care of. So, thanks for watching the video. Stay tuned for more videos.